Hey, thanks for being here today. As you know, we are down to just the last few hours of regular session. As I've talked about from the very start, that I believed that we could have gotten this done on time. As you remember, the scrums that we did early on up in the front each day that our Democrat colleagues didn't show up for work, and we ended up doing that 23 days in a row. But here we are, last day. There are some things that you've seen move off the House floor. There are a number of things that conference committees are really working hard on. They are moving through and trying to find agreements as we've moved forward. That is where we're at right now. You'll see us come back to the House floor in just a few short minutes. We're going to plan on taking up that Human Services Policy bill, or the conference committee report that got stalled out yesterday. The only reason that got stalled out is Democrats in the House didn't hold to their word as far as what we were going to be taking up with unemployment extension for minors. But we've worked all of that out. We'll be taking that up at 1 o'clock, potentially pensions then too, but we'll see where we're at with that. And then it'll be a start-stop. Leader Niska?
Yeah, we're working hard to try to finish things out. Obviously, we have a very narrowly divided legislature, and that's been a challenge in terms of working through all of the policy issues that where there's a majority in the Senate that wants to fix paid family medical leave, but Democrats are continuing to hold that up as something that would not be possible. And the conference committees have a lot of work to do, and they're working hard to try to get all of the various issues that have been at the committee level worked out, and we're trying to work out things as quickly as we can for all the people of Minnesota.
Madam Speaker,
yeah.
Even with those few weeks late start, wasn't this going to be hard to finish on time, given the polarized nature of things?
You know, I think it's really important. Leader Niska pointed this out, that we're a very closely divided legislature. Minnesota legislature right now is 101 Democrats, 100 Republicans, and equally tied here in the House. We knew it was going to be difficult, but we were ready to get to work and do that right away. You've seen compromise all the way through as we've been moving through, so we were going to be on a tight timeline. Waiting 23 days of a stall out was not helpful when we were looking at the calendar. You know, we are looking at just a brief special session. The governor has to call that, but you've heard that from all of the leaders saying we can get most of the things through as much as we can today, and then come back for that brief special session just to wrap up a few things.
Is immigrant health care going to be a deal breaker?
You know, you saw already when the global targets were released, agreed on by all three leaders and the governor, looking at the fact that taxpayers in the state of Minnesota are not going to be able to afford to provide health insurance for those people that are here as undocumented. Again, that does not prevent any undocumented person here in the state from getting health care. All we are saying is that Minnesotans can't afford, because of the expanse, cannot afford to pay their health insurance. So that gets a little bit twisted in the headlines. We are not preventing anyone to access their health care, but Minnesota taxpayers cannot be on the hook in the expansion, going from 5,700 expected people to start on that program. And from January 1st of this year till April 24th, it's over 20,000 people. It is unaffordable.
But could it be a deal breaker?
It is not a deal breaker for Republicans and most of the state of Minnesota. They're saying we can't afford this. And so we have worked really hard to find cuts. We've got over $5 billion of cuts in the state budget and spending between last biennium and this biennium. As you remember, $18 billion of surplus over the last 2 years was absolutely spent and raised another $10 billion on the backs of Minnesotans. And we are headed toward a structural imbalance. In the global targets, along with the changes that we've made, we've attacked that structural imbalance by almost 45%. We've done very good work. Hard decisions, very good work, and we are ready to get those things in bill form and get them passed.
Since you guys reached this global agreement,
What's that?
what is changing since you reached this global agreement?
Well,
Things have changed.
I mean, Democrat legislators were pounding on the governor's door. That's what's changed. I mean, as to the previous question, obviously we are concerned about whether Democrats are going to hold up on their end of the deal in terms of the deal. And then there are a lot of issues, as was made clear in the announcement of the deal, that are still at the committee level that still have to be worked out in terms of, the details in each particular budget area, trying to make sure that the policy and the finance in those areas works out for the in order to put our state on the best fiscal track possible.
But, Madam Speaker, can you clarify? Can you clarify though about what was in the global deal? I ask because it seems like there's back and forth over paid family medical leave changes. The furthest you could go, you said, was 0.1% reduction, non-public school aid being held harmless. The Senate Democrats think differently, but they think differently on paid family medical leave. Was there an agreement beyond Minnesota Care on those other policy issues?
There were never the votes to pass any type of cuts to non-public school aid. There were never votes for that. That was not part of the deal to make cuts in that area. As you've seen, our chairs in the conference committee come up with millions of dollars of cuts that never touched that at all. That wasn't part of the deal. Paid family medical leave, we only had that small decrease in the tax on all Minnesota businesses, but yet we are hearing from Senate Democrats, Senator Seeberger, Chair Baker here in the House has been a leader in this area. They're still hearing from businesses, and there is bipartisan desire to make additional changes to paid family medical leave before it even rolls out. That was not part of the global agreement, but yet if there is a desire to do that here in the legislature, that could be part of things as we move forward. I have no intent of going back on the global deal that was reached. We signed that in good faith. Hard decisions were made, and this is what we need to do. So we are continuing to work forward in each of the areas, both those that have been settled that you saw come off the floor, ag, housing, veterans, and then we'll keep working on these more contentious ones.
Senator Murphy, is it
Conversations that were happening while the vote board was open for all that time yesterday, are those a sign of maybe something we should read into as the state of things in the House and where they stand right now?
I think the things here in the state of the House, basically, and how we're working is there had been an agreement that had reached as far as how bills were going to come up, that minors unemployment extension, and then it looked like we couldn't get that off the table as had been promised. So our effort was to keep having those conversations. The board stayed open. Leader Niska was very key in that. I'll let him answer that a little more specifically.
Yeah, we think it's really important that the workers at those two mines that have been shut down just have the security of having a clean extension of their unemployment insurance benefits. That's a Democrat-authored bill that we thought we had an agreement to calendar for today in the normal course by putting it on the calendar for the day through the floor vote. When that motion, then when Democrats weren't willing to take that motion off the table and move forward with what we thought was agreed to, that was why the board was left open, and we were having discussions about what we were going to need to do in order to get Democrats to come to the table and do what and we did get an agreement that we are going to pass that out of the House today. We're going to suspend the rules. Democrats agreed that they were going to, sometime later on today, they are going to agree to suspend the rules, and we will be able to send that over to the Senate. It has not been taken up as a standalone bill in the Senate. At least it's not on the Senate floor. But if we do it early enough in the day, we're hopeful that the Senate will also agree that it's important to give those minors that security before we end a regular session.
Why does it have to go alone and not just go in the jobs bill, which is what Senate Majority Leader Murphy said it should be?
It's really interesting to watch that, though. It is a Democrat-authored bill here in the House. It is authored by Representative Johnson, and so he wanted that as a standalone. The mining community and the northern Minnesota, the Iron Range area, is really looking for a signal from the legislature that we have their backs as they are facing something unexpected. And I think it's important to send to Representative Johnson to have that as a standalone.
Is that a symptom of some issues on other bills, other budget issues, that you guys can't get that to the floor and there's that much division on something like that?
We are absolutely working together, and as you know, last day of session, and as tightly divided as we are, there are different perspectives all the way across. I'm not expecting anything different than what you're seeing right now. I think as viewpoints on these different bills come forward, that is the whole process of what we do. We debate and we hear, and conference committees work. Everything has been very, very public, and then you'll hear us on the House floor as we can get things there. So I think we're in a difficult position, but I think we're really set up for success here in the state of Minnesota.
The caucus had a temporary majority for several weeks. If you miss this deadline, don't you bear some responsibility, especially as the Speaker?
You know what? I would say definitely that House Republicans got sworn in this chamber on day one of the legislative session. So yes, we did have a temporary majority for a little while. We were here doing our work. House Democrats chose to stay home for 23 days on the backs of the taxpayers.
Senator Murphy,
Will the public be able to watch these working groups or are they just going to be behind closed
You know,
doors?
our conference committees are public. You can watch for that schedule, and you can either go in person or watch them online.
Senator, these deals are going to be made in working groups because you're not going to have them done by the time.
Conference committees are moving through even today. They are able to be viewed by the public right now as they continue to move forward.
So when do you think the special session will be? Can you hold it to one day?
The governor calls a special session, and that will be determined by the governor.
Is it realistic to think it could happen this week yet?
I am always optimistic that we will be able to get the work done. It'll be up to the governor to call the special session as far as when and typically about how much time.
But he's not going to call it until there's an agreement.
Exactly.
And right now, there's nothing close to an agreement on a lot of things.
I think we're very close.
There are a few.
I really do. We are very, very close on a number of things. There are some small areas we have to work through. We are in the process of doing that, and that hasn't stopped at all.
Is there a day that you would prefer to come back or that you're advocating for?
As soon as we can would be what I would want. Minnesotans want us to get the work done and get out of here. We are part-time legislature. The people in this body need to get back into their districts, back to their jobs that they take a leave from typically, and be back in the district. And so I think we can get the work done very quickly. So.
Senator Murphy basically accused House Republicans of holding up bills going over there, basically saying they're trying to push for last-minute things that weren't part of the deal. She called out Representative Baker with paid family leave as one of them. Is that holding things up? What do you make of her accusation?
I didn't realize that she had made that accusation. I've been in meetings, so I haven't been able to watch that. That's a little disappointing because I don't think this is a time for accusations. What I will say, though, is we are absolutely not holding a single thing up at this point at the desk. We have the Human Services Policy, CCR, that we're going to be taking up shortly. If you stay, you'll see that happen. And then we've got the pensions bill. That's all we have at the desk. There are things that have not even gone through the Senate, education and other things that have not gone through the Senate yet. So we are sending over everything as much as we can.
But she's saying the holdup is in conference committee.
You know what? People are working in their conference committees, and there are different areas that they're kind of finding sticking points, but they're working their way through. That is how this is intended to go, but nothing is being held up intentionally at this point.
Signing conferees on the committees that don't have them already a priority before midnight tonight?
I think the only committee that doesn't have conferees is the Education Finance Committee, which, well, the Education Finance Committee, the Senate sent, apparently isn't going to do anything with that. The House has passed a bill, and it's up to the Senate to take action on that. The tax bill has always been one where the House has never sent over a tax bill until the rest of the finance bills are wrapped. That's just not something that the House ever historically does because it's the prerogative of the House to pass a tax bill.
If I could just clarify what you were saying about private school cuts. Was it in the deal to not cut aid?
That was never part of the deal to cut them. I mean, it was never there. There are not the votes to support that.
Was it part of the deal to not cut them?
It was never in there to cut them. Yep, never part of it.
You were saying that, Speaker Demuth, that you specifically instructed House Republican committee co-chairs not to communicate with Senate committee co-chairs, including Melissa Whitburn. Could you respond to that? You instructed them not to speak
all of our committee chairs, are the chairs that have gone into the conference committees, are working as much as possible with our Senate, with the Senate, with the DFL. There has been no instruction from me or my office to not communicate with those on the conference committee. That is absolutely untrue.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.